Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Aliyan podcast. This is your host, Ali Adnan Rada, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Ali Hamid Zaidi, the wonderful writer at Words from Experience. Introduce yourself once more. Underscore Words from Experience. All right, introduce yourself.
There we go. Hi guys, this is Ali Hamid Zaidi, and welcome to... Geez, how many episodes?
We're at a number of episodes. We can decide on what episode we're on later. All right. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest by the name of Pooja Baburaj. Pooja is an AUS alumnus, American University of Sharjah, which is the university that I attend currently. And honestly, she first caught my eye because I took notice of her work in diversity and inclusion. I noticed some of the work she'd done at AUS. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my guest. Pooja, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for having me. And I did not know, honestly, it's still a mystery how you know me and how you found me. But I'm happy that you all reached out to me, and I'm so excited to be part of this session.
As are we excited to have you. To be honest, if I could just touch up on the whole how I got to know about you and find out about you. There's obviously Instagram, and then, when you've got a million mutuals with someone, they'll show up in your follow list. And I tend to click on almost everyone who shows up in my recommended with absolutely zero discrimination. But, I clicked, I saw the bio, and I was like, this. I'm like, oh, nice. She's in AUS. And then, oh, she's graduated AUS. And, I think then we kind of we saw each other on campus once, but I remember I didn't say anything. So there's that. Anyway, so I'm going to hand over again to you once more. If you could just briefly introduce yourself, I guess when you came to Dubai, where you grew up, what was it like for you growing up over here? And then, we'll go from there.
Okay, that's a very deep question to start with. So I'm going to try my best to not delve into too many details. Well, I think I have been here all my life. I was just born in India, but then I think I was brought here when I was 3 months old. So clearly all my formative years have been spent here. I have no memory of being there. And I don't travel that often to India either. So you can say in a sense that this has been my only home. And when it comes to how my childhood was, the only thing I can remember, and it's not just an aspect of my childhood, but I was super obsessed with Power Rangers. I still am. And it's quite unfortunate that this is a podcast. If it were a show, I could show you my desk, and it's just filled with different types of Power Rangers merch.
Hey, yo, that's so sick. That's so sick.
I'm not ashamed of it. I'm 25, and I still have to wake up and see my, Red Ranger just staring right back at me.
Absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. I had one of our previous guests. He was talking to us. We'd called him onto the show to talk about something else entirely. But then he was so passionately talking about his interest and his childhood memories of WWE and watching WWE. And, he has such a rich trivia background in WWE as well. So that's so cool. Why Power Rangers? Because, I've seen the word power around yourself in the form of, a certain something, which you can get into a lot. And, I see yourself, mashallah, I see yourself, incredible English. I see you as someone who is very powerful in her persona, etc. So why Power Rangers? That's quite interesting.
What do you mean, why Power Rangers?
Okay, that's not what I meant.
Well, that was unexpected backup, but I think I was just fascinated by a bunch of young people who had the power to make a difference. And the thing with Power Rangers is that, not that I discriminate, I'm also a huge Marvel fan, but then usually the people there or the superheroes there are quite old compared to the rest of us. But Power Rangers, they're usually teenagers. So, at least the main MCU movies, it's not like you have a teenager running around besides Spider-Man. So that's not a lot of people you can relate to. It's just one dude. But when it comes to Power Rangers, it's usually teenage kids. This is their secret identity, and they have all of these cool superpowers, and they go to school in the morning, and then in between the day, whenever they get time, they save the world. So I like the idea of that.
Yeah, I totally understand. That's actually a perspective I never looked at it. They always looked to me to be in their like early 20s or something, but yeah, actually they were teenagers and they had very teenage habits when it came to it. I guess yeah, that aspect of relatability is something that I haven't really seen in Marvel TV shows and Marvel movies, because I think with Marvel it's more of a appeal factor because you hear the names from the comics over and over in your childhood, whereas
Yeah.
when it comes to connecting with something new, it really helps to see someone your own age, doing that or being involved in that particular activity. In fact, when I was just getting into podcasting, for instance, I think one of the only podcasts that, for comparison, properly caught my eye was a podcast that I discovered just a few weeks ago called Culture Mocktail, and that's hosted by two young university students, I presume, in the UK, just like us. So yeah, I think age is definitely a novelty factor. And so you've always been into like Power Rangers since, so you're still kind of obsessed with it?
Yeah, 100%. I think I will carry that obsession with me until my grave. There's nothing that's gonna kill that part of me.
Okay,
And
Ali Hamid, yeah, go on.
no, I just wanted to add that the reason why I stuck with Power Rangers is that there is this one series, I think it was SPD. No, I'm sure it's SPD, where they had a Red Ranger. It's oftentimes a man or a boy. But in this particular series, they said there is a level A Red Ranger who has been lost, but she is apparently the most powerful Ranger that's ever been there in the Power Rangers universe.
Damn.
And
Hey, yo,
that's
this is
what
deeper lore than I'm aware
yeah.
of.
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, she was the A squad team captain, and there was this scene where she unmasked herself because they were expecting a guy, and then
Right.
she asked the current Red Ranger, like, "Do you have a problem that I'm a woman?" And that's when I said, "Oh my God, there's a female Red Ranger."
You know what? It all makes sense to me. It's a lot more clear to me now why you're so. I mean, your entire childhood was, oh my God, I see myself being included in a conversation which mainly only involves men, not just heroics and superheroes, but then also leadership. And it's nice to see that there's this direct background of relatability that you can like connect back to, that's brought you here. Just before we move on, there is something that I want to ask, and this might lead to the usual pitchfork and torch type of demeanor. Which one has been your favorite Power Rangers series ever? I think we'll take it in turns. I'll let you go first, Pooja, and then we'll pass over to Ali Hamid.
SPD.
SPD, to be very honest with you, I think that's the only one that I looked forward to watching. The other ones kind of came on TV, and I kind of saw them. But then, as far as series that I looked forward to watching every time they came on TV, was definitely SPD. Ali Hamid, what about you?
Man, don't ask me such tough questions. It's not easy to choose. I mean, I grew up with like Dino Thunder, Wild Force, and like so many of them. Like, if I were to pick my top three, they would definitely be like SPD, then Wild Force, and then Dino Thunder.
I think yeah. I think SPD came like preceded all of these ones, right? I think SPD was the first one out of these. Oh, it wasn't.
No, it
No,
wasn't.
was-
Actually, it was
wasn't. Dino
Dino
Thunder was
Thunder?
the first. Dino
Yeah,
Thunder,
Dino Thunder.
then Wild Force, and then SPD.
Oh,
And in the middle, there were like a smattering of others. But okay, what was your favorite Power Ranger show?
yeah, it has to be SPD for me as well, to be honest with you. I don't think any of them really had the appeal, as I said, as did SPD in the past. That's really interesting, I guess, way to foray into the main conversation. Ali Hamid, did you have any TV shows, particularly growing up, that you still resonate with today?
Oh, uh, I'll get back to you on that. It's gonna take me a while because I used to watch a lot of TV shows.
Damn.
Yeah, I was at 5 o'clock in the morning before school, straight on the TV.
Dude, I feel bad now. I think my entire viewing list was just Power Rangers and then this other show called Goosebumps.
Oh, you watched the OG Goosebumps?
Yeah, because it was the slots were adjacent to each other. So once I was done watching SPD, the next show was Goosebumps.
Oh wow, wow.
But that's it. I think that's my childhood. That's all.
Why can't I remember mine? Just like, oh my god, I think like, my memory bank is like so much filled with like cartoons and stuff. It's just mad. Yeah, I can't think of anything. What about you, Pooja? What is your like?
No Ben 10? No one Ben 10?
No, I was.
I would say Ben 10 was influential. It was just more or less something that I enjoyed watching rather than just like being something influential.
Man, I think Ben 10 was probably the first show that I proper got like deep into. Some would say way too deep into. I may have seen some content and read some things that I shouldn't have, but then as far as understanding the show itself goes, there's obviously fan content that I'm referring to, but then as far as the understanding of the show itself goes, I proper went into like the alien physiology and like what all the different things meant within the show. A little bit into like the motifs and the thematic elements. It doesn't make any sense because it's a kids show, but then you can kind of pick those things out. But that's great. Just branching off of there. Since I guess we've eased in, we're a bit more comfortable. Would you consider the Squad A Red Rangers being a female, that particular discovery in your time? Would you say that was, I guess, the spark or the activation energy for you to start doing the work that you've been doing ever since then in inclusion and diversity and equality for both genders? Or was it something else?
No, for sure. It was one of the reasons, and it is really. I know many people don't think it's that important to just see someone like you on screen, but that's the moment that you realize that you can hold that power. Because until then, it's always, oh, you're female, so you can be the Pink Ranger, and that's it. And usually they're the weakest ones for some damn reason. Like they're usually the eye candy. Even though they are a Power Ranger, pink ones are always eye candy. So I was sick and tired.
Unfortunate, but true. I understand what you're saying totally.
And the other times that they had a female Power Ranger is usually when it has to be somebody Asian, and they'd be the Yellow Ranger, and they would have nothing more to themselves other than being Asian.
Hey,
so it was so annoying. It was so annoying.
I never ever noticed that the Yellow Ranger was Asian. Oh my god.
Most of them were Asian. And this one was interesting because they actually had a brown skin. I think she was darker skinned. Not sure if she was where she was from exactly, but she in SPD, first of all, the Red Ranger was, I think, African American, the first one. And the A Squad was, again, she was darker skinned than usual. She wasn't just another white woman with blonde hair and just somebody else who can access that power immediately. It was someone you thought could never become the Red Ranger. And in that moment, I knew that anybody can wield that power if given the opportunity. And that was definitely a spark in my brain. I was too young for it, but then I didn't think about it.
Yeah. That's actually incredible and so interesting because you don't expect it. Like, you expect maybe Mother Teresa or other influential women. Obviously you've got legends like Rosa Parks, you've got, I forgot her name, Amelia Earhart, you've got all these individuals that were pioneers and leaders in their fields. And of course you've got in more recent times, you've got physicists like Lisa Meitner. You've got chemists like Marie Curie, and also God bless her. I do not remember her name, but the woman who wrote the code to take the picture of the black hole that was discovered. I mean, you expect that your guiding or your sparking influences were these, but I guess to be inspired from such a young age by a cartoon to be what you are today, that's pretty groundbreaking. That's pretty cool. Don't you think, Ali Hamid?
It is very cool. Yeah, it's works with everyone, I guess. And yeah, what were you saying, Pooja?
No, the thing is that's why people need to understand that superheroes are super important, because all the names you mentioned, these are people that got introduced to my, peripheral vision of knowledge, or whatever it is that you want to say, like, my information bank, only when I grew older, and I had to search for them, and I had to be acquainted with them through the books that feature them, through the newspaper articles that applaud them, all of these things. But kids don't really sit and search for Marie Curie unless they are interested in science. It's not something that everybody would sit and search for, especially not a 5-year-old kid. They're not that accessible. And I think superheroes give people that accessibility. You could be a 3-year-old watching Batman walk in, and you would get just as excited as a 40-year-old. And I think that's why Chadwick Boseman is so important, right? Because when he came on screen, you did not have to Wikipedia him, or you did not have to search him through Google to understand the power he wields. You saw him, you got goosebumps, you got teary-eyed, and you were proud. You were just so proud, and you could feel that allyship rise in you. You just feel so proud for the Black community that they finally got the hero that they deserved. And of course, they have amazing, groundbreaking disruptors, innovators, and social leaders. But when he walked in, a child could see the power, and I think that's why it matters so much. That you could move even a 3-year-old into having such passion, such great emotions, and that's why I really think that that's the reason why, even though they're fictional characters, they make so much of a difference.
That's great. Actually, now that I think about it, a person's understanding of culture is so heavily driven by the media content that they consume. I started taking a course this semester to satisfy a general elective called Global Media. Shout out to Dr. Abir, excellent professor. And, she highlights the same sort of cross-cultural influence and introduction, really in terms of the power that the media holds to influence these things. And, often it's depressing almost to see that in a vast majority of cases, it's a very negative portrayal. Like you said, that the Yellow Ranger was almost always Asian. I mean, that's dodgy, man. I'm sorry. I'm not going to start making assumptions and say that, oh, it was deliberate and they were trying to play off of a subconscious association, or, God forbid, even form a subconscious association and encourage racism. But then, the complexities of media and, passive aggressive subliminal messaging, advertisement, propaganda, these are all different things that we could go in depth about, but we shouldn't for the purposes of this particular episode. Oh, damn. So all the way from the wonderful mythical lands of Power Rangers to where you are now, that's amazing. Tell me about AUS. So did you always want to go to AUS? Or did they just was it because for me it was a very sudden last minute decision.
Oh, is that how everybody ends up at AUS? Oh my.
Not always. It's usually more of a, we want to go abroad, and then in the end something happens that makes you change your mind.
But no, for me also, I wasn't planning to go abroad per se. I wanted to return back to my country, and simply because the course that I wanted to pursue, it was political science and economics. And it's always better to be back home so that you can gain hands-on practical experience.
You mean India? When you say back home, you mean India? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So here, it would not be possible because, of course, I'm an immigrant. So opportunities to work in government agencies would be much lesser. And to add to that, I don't speak any Arabic. I don't think I even know how to ask for help in Arabic, even though they have been teaching as Arabic for 10 years. So given all of that, it only made sense if I went back home and then studied it the right way, so that I know not just theory, but also the practical implications of policy. But unfortunately, I would say, the political climate was rather unfavorable for women at that point of time. And people my parents took a step back and decided to put me into AUS because it was just a safer option in that sense. So that's how I decided to go to AUS. Well, not me, but my parents. But that's how I ended up at AUS.
And well, would you say you were pleased with that decision on the long run? I very much am. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be this good. I'll be pretty perfectly honest with you.
I would say I had a mixed experience. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to sugarcoat it, but I'm also not going to make it sound more tragic than it was. But it was a mixed experience, as in the international studies department it was an honor to be there because the professors were brilliant. The curriculum was just it kept you on your toes, and the professors there made sure that they pushed out the best work possible by you, and they always, their expectations, most of the times you will feel pressured, but these type of professors are the ones who are like, no, you can do better, and then you would rise up to their standards, and in the process you would become something amazing. And that's how I ended up winning the Global Undergraduate Awards for my final thesis, as well as a paper I wrote in my third year. So you can see that, across the years, I had so much of support and mentoring from my professors there. And that's something I'll always be thankful for. They were definitely the unintended blessing of coming to AUS. But as a system, in its whole sense, I was a little bit disappointed because College of Arts and Sciences is not as well funded as the other three colleges that coexist with us on the same campus. And I grew a little tired of watching SBA and always being envious that why do they always have these opportunities? They seem to get internships more easily than us. They seem to have such big grants and prizes and awards that they give away, that their incentive system was much better. So
I
in
understand.
that,
I
it was a
understand.
lonely place. You had to
CAS
create
has
your
had
own
a history.
opportunities. Yeah, we were just
Yeah.
like the lonely kids in a corner. Nobody really cares about us. So that really ticked me off because you would have to create your own opportunities, whereas the other schools had plenty of them. And this is why, my experience has been a 50-50.
Damn. Now that I think about it, you say so many eye-opening things. It's no secret, especially after the opening of ESB, the Engineering Science Building, and of course, the new SBA has always been, splendid. But by new, I mean obviously the one that's been there since I think 2017 or whenever it opened, the current SBA building, and obviously you've got the engineering research facilities and faculty. It does always seem to me that CAS is a bit underrated. And that's really something I didn't think about. But that aside, however, let's really, dive into, I would say, the real deep end here. When faced with these challenges, as you said, the system, the systematic, almost in a sense, discrimination or, unfair distribution of wealth and power within the universities, how did you find opportunities for yourself? Were you forced to make them yourself? Did you just go into other colleges and go like, YOLO, I'm going to take part in your events and I'm going to go attend your conferences, etc.? What did you have to do as an individual to come up?
I wish I could go into other college events, but then unfortunately most of them were locked down to their own students, because of course it makes sense. Those students are paying for their majors, so they would have a better preference when it comes to accessing opportunities. So that would mean it was the other option, which was creating my own stuff. And like I said, INS department was always, and I could just be biased, but I felt like it was always a step ahead of CAS as a whole, because of which, we have MUN and we had INSA. So I was an active part of MUN until the end of my term, I think my final year.
You want to tell the wider audience? You want to tell the wider audience what INSA is?
Okay, so it is International Studies Student Association. So we always had an active community that brought all the students and professors together. So we were a very close-knit community and we really supported each other, like I said. So that was something that was not very omnipresent across all majors in CAS. So we had that. And the second thing is obviously our crown and glory, which is MUN. And that is till date the biggest conference AUS hosts. And I think it's one of the biggest conferences in UAE itself. And I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to be part of the board for all 4 years. Besides that, I kickstarted something, of course, alongside an amazing, hardworking team, all of whom I miss right now. We started Model Congress, which was then co-opted by the CAS.
Oh, you were one of the originators of Model Congress. I actually
Yes.
didn't know that. I thought it started, after I came in and after you graduated.
Oh no, we ran the first session and we got only 2 rooms in SBA, and it was a really, you could tell that it was a pilot session. But then, of course, the idea was introduced by me and this, like I said, this team of 9 other super awesome, superstars. They were superstars of AUS, and then once we kickstarted the first pilot, then CAS decided this fits in with their agenda, especially since they have MUN. Model Congress would be their fall iconic conference, because they alternate, and yeah, that's how it became the big thing that it is today. But then I'm happy that we started that. And I also remember going into my particular HOD's office, and then he was a really wonderful man, Dr. Vernon. All my love for him, because he always had his door open to listen to all of my rants against other colleges and the opportunities they get. And I told him, why don't we have a dean's team? Why is it that dean's teams only exist for the engineering college, and then it's a big deal for the business school? They have these huge selection processes, and then you would just be stuck in wonder, like, why don't I have those opportunities? And then once we petitioned, we got our own version.
Damn, this is really some insider info. I think AUSers are gonna really enjoy this. It's like some spicy stuff. And the wonderful thing is, as I go deeper, and I'm really sorry for cutting you off, but
No.
as I go deeper and deeper into AUS, and obviously I'm in my 3rd year now. I've got just 2 left before grad. The whole deal. I'm starting to feel a bit old. I see the energy and the passion, and not just these 2 things. Energy and passion are very common, but then the initiative that some of the students who are just coming in have. And I feel almost personally obligated or responsible to, show them the right avenues and guide them to the right places to make sure that their initiative can be put to good use. Because I think AUS as a whole does have opportunity, but sometimes you really have to look for it. And sometimes you have to create it. Were you at all familiar with Dr. Ali Khawaja, not Dr. Sorry, Professor Ali Khawaja at the time?
No, and I regret it. I met him, I think, this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Once I started rolling out my own social initiatives outside of work, and I came back to university, and everyone said, you need to meet Professor Ali Khawaja. And I said, why? I said, because he's the one who is the energy source for every social entrepreneur here at AUS. And then I finally got the chance to meet the man, the myth, the legend. It was that sort of a situation. And I was completely starstruck, because he's just so charismatic, and he's so empowering in that sense. And I wish I get the chance to, be mentored by him someday, sometime. But yeah.
I mean, it's funny you talk about that, because the Hult Prize team that you judged and voted in favor of was orchestrated and fully mentored by him. And I was, really privileged to be a part of that. For the general audience, obviously the Hult Prize is a business competition for university students. And you basically create an idea, pitch it within 6 minutes, do a Q&A for 4 minutes. And our advisor was a particular professor, Professor Ali Khawaja, who's really, like, you can say, the king, or the supreme leader of
I agree completely.
He is supreme leader of such initiatives of entrepreneurship within AUS. And I would say a large part of the credit for the start of this particular podcast, in terms of his insights and his feedback, goes to him, because he was the first person that came to mind when I wanted to start this. He was the first person I ever mentioned it to out of anybody. And when I started to get positive affirmations, and I got the green signal for him, I finally mustered up the strength to talk this out with my co-host Ali Hamid and kick it off the ground. And he's been supportive ever since. He helped me. He's like, "Are you guys on Apple Podcasts? This is how you can get on Apple Podcasts." All of those different things, and it's just really wonderful to see that he's so passionate about AUS students and the entrepreneurs in AUS like they're his own children. So yeah, massive shout out to Professor Ali Khawaja. But segueing right from there, you said that leaving AUS had an impact in the sense that you just recently have started your own initiatives and your social initiatives. And of course, there's a couple of accolades here and there that I've read about that you might want to talk about. What are some of the social initiatives that you started? Can you tell us a bit about them?
Yeah, for sure. So I was selected to be part of the Daughters of the Emirates cohort, I think, of 2020.
Daughters of the Emirates.
Yeah, I said I think because I'm confused because they select us in 2019, but then we graduate in 2020. So I got confused with the years. But as part of the program, we are required to create social projects that uplift a certain section of the community, whichever pillar of the community that we are passionate about. It could vary and range from the environment to culture to education. And I stuck with education because that's my passion point. And if there's anything that drives my inner entrepreneur, it has to be a challenge that, springs up from the education sector. So I continue doing that. I worked on it. I developed something called Power Up, where we basically try to give access to resources and opportunities to students who belong to low-income households and oftentimes go to low-resource schools. And they're just cut off from the rat race, you can say, from the start. It's an unfair advantage. There are others with a very pleasant term that we call privilege. So that's something they don't have. And we want to make sure that we level the playing field in any small way that we can and ensure that these students, they get powered up to face any challenges that they have by giving them equal opportunities to, overcome them.
So did you start Power Up, or it's like a team?
It's a team, and there are actually, 5. I think we are a group of 5. So I'm actually the executive director, sort of like the team leader. So.
Wow.
Damn, Power Up AE. What kind of work do you guys do at Power Up exactly? So obviously the overarching theme of the organization you made very clear. What kind of work do you guys do?
So we aim to go into schools and provide capability building programs, especially schools, like I mentioned, that are low resource. And we would be training these students in future fit skills so that this is something that's very common in bigger schools, especially gem schools, because of course they're paying for it by virtue of the big packs of fees that you're given. So they owe it to you in a sense. But then these schools, they have such a low bracket of fees. There's so little you can do with it. So we target these schools and then we go in there and we provide these capability building workshops either for a nominal fee or free of cost, depending on how much sponsorship we have been able to secure.
Nice. So you've got a team responsible for obviously public relations. What kind of people do you approach for sponsorships? Are we talking about government? Are we talking about venture capitalists? What kind of people?
We usually, of course, as part of Daughters of the Emirates program, we did have to secure our initial funding from a bank, and it was given to us by a panel of venture capitalists. But then thereafter, we're looking at any business organization that has a thriving CSR program, and we're in talks with such organizations to consider us as your CSR initiative.
What's CSR?
Corporate social responsibility. Yeah, corporate social responsibility.
Corporate social responsibility. Nice. Man like Ali Hamid with the social political jargon. Epic. Nice. So that's what Power Up UAE is all about. I saw you guys' Instagram and I saw you guys were holding workshops and a lot of things. It was adorable. It was very nice. A lot of work you do is very wholesome, by the way. So big shout out to you for that. Yeah. So moving on from there, from Power Up, what's the actually, before we do, what's the reception for that been like? Because I'll be brutally honest with you. Living and growing up in the UAE for, the best part of a decade and a half, even more, more than a decade and a half, almost 2 decades, it's become very clear to me that social initiatives and even entrepreneurship in general, at least from what I've seen, aren't as big as they can be. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that has to do with the legalities of it all. I don't know if that has to do with not being enough positive encouragement. Comment on that a little bit. Like, what was it like for you starting startup, Power Up, and what was the reception like? If there's any advice you'd like to give from your experience in that regard.
I think my advice would come from an unfortunate lesson that we faced. In fact, Power Up we're not active anymore.
I see.
Because we, all of the 5 initial co-founders, we have decided to part ways and try to grow this enterprise in a way that we individually can. And the reason why we came to this conclusion was, one, because people don't take their time to select team members. And when you start a social entrepreneurship venture, the one thing you need to know is that you need to be with a set of people who can pull through with you despite the number of obstacles and failures that you face.
I totally
and
agree.
there will be many. And so you need to be in, I'm not going to say it's all going to be roses and flowers scattering everywhere and you're just running around in the field with these best friends that you have. No, you're going to be real people with real differences. But then we need to have an environment where we're just respectful of each other and we will hold each other up when we feel low. And we will feel low a lot of times because this is a hard field. No one's going to just come out and give money to you. So it is not really that we didn't get along. I would say that the program was structured in a way where they accepted individual applications and they formed the team. So we didn't know each other. We didn't know how we would work together in the long run. As a result of which we had to cut short Power Up. And now we're all pursuing similar entrepreneurial ventures, either within our own companies, or a few of us have gone on to join other organizations and they're continuing to do their good work. But I think that is key, that you need to have a strong team, because a strong team can make a C grade idea into an A+ venture.
I totally agree with you. They being when you said that they selected the teams for you, they being the Daughters of the Emirates program.
Yeah.
Right. That's such a cool name, by the way. I think they're in Arabic they're called Ihbanat or E7 Banat or something like that.
Yeah, E7 Banat al-Imarat.
E7 Banat al-Imarat. Yeah. I saw that. It's a really cool name. It kind of reminds me of the Sons of Liberty. That was a faction in Metal Gear. You guys familiar with Metal Gear?
No. I'm not.
Oh man, I love the spy and government oriented games. I would say my proper honest foray into politics and social political matters was games like Metal Gear Solid and Splinter Cell. You might have heard of Tom Clancy, Pooja?
Yes.
He's an author. He writes a lot of these socio-political sci-fi thrillers, and one of the most cult hit things he's ever worked on was the game series Splinter Cell, or well, it wasn't him, it was Ubisoft that developed it on his behalf, and I think it was based on his book or books on Splinter Cell by the same name and the same storyline. Yeah. So that was actually my first foray into socio-political matters, etc. It was these particular games. I remember playing on these, especially on Splinter Cell, for hours on end without getting bored, because I would say I was a little bit of a weird kid. Ali Hamid, back me up, please.
You want somebody to back you up as evidence of your weirdness?
Trust me. He probably doesn't remember half the stuff he's done than how much I do.
I was a weird kid, and while I was very jolly, happy-go-lucky, and immature, there was always this side of me that was so much older than my body, and I would garner enjoyment from complicated books and 10th grade 12th grade reading, and things like games that actually have depth and storyline to them. Like, that was so important to me as a child, and it's nice to see that as we started, as I guess the underlying base of this particular episode, that these little things in our childhood, they can connect us with matters that actually matter in the world.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, almost poetic, I would say. We have a poet in our hosts. Poetic almost, how you start from somewhere and then you end up actually making a difference because of something you watched or something you played as a kid. But I would say one of the most incredible characteristics that I've started to notice more and more about you, especially since you started speaking in the podcast, is your persistence and your adaptability. And I am sure you'll agree that in any sort of entrepreneurial landscape, Ali Hamid and Pooja, that being able to adapt to change very quickly is incredibly important.
It is very underrated. Very important.
Moving on from Power Up and obviously the closure of Power Up, what did you do to get closure after the closure? Oh God, I'm not funny.
I started something new.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that didn't work out, so I made a new one. You sound like one of those jolly mad scientists. It's amazing. Well, that didn't work out, so I made a new one.
Yeah, I mean,
what did you do next? What was the way forward for you, Pooja?
Something called One Byte Elephant.
One Byte Elephant. Man, like one bite. I swear, this podcast, it's not just informative, it's hilarious. So to everyone in the audience listening, I heavily encourage you, check it out. Their episodes are not an hour long, so some of you can breathe a sigh of relief. And really, they zone in. So I think we conducted a poll on Instagram today, and it was like, guys, it's an hour too long. Do you want us to keep an hour-long episode, or do you guys want us to shorten it to like 45 minutes?
And then 30 minutes later, 47 people said 35 to 45 minutes.
Exactly, and like 7 people said, no, you can keep the current length. It's okay. But yeah, I guess it's just the nature of our initiatives are pretty different. You guys like to zone in. What are some of the topics that you've covered in One Byte Elephant? Now, before I insinuate these questions upon you like some sort of interrogator, tell us about One Byte Elephant from your perspective. How did it come about, and what kind of stuff do you do?
So I will just repeat our tagline.
What is it? Yeah.
Which is to break down the mammoth themes plaguing youth into accessible bytes. So what we do is that we talk about issues. It could be the environment or global inequality, all these things that we have to fix somehow so that we have a future that's more than 30 years at least, because that's what it's looking like right now. So we talk about all of this heavy stuff that kind of leaves a really difficult feeling in your heart, but then we're trying to encourage hard talks and tough conversations here. And then we bring on board either youth leaders or people who generally work for the welfare of youth onto this show so that we can talk about stuff, stuff that you try to push into your subconscious because they're too difficult to deal with. But then right now is the time to actually face them all. It's tough to do it through an IGTV show that's no longer than 20 minutes, but we try our best.
The no longer than 20 minutes idea, who gave you that? I have an idea, but who gave it to you?
I think it was all of us, to be honest, because when we
you guys decided on it. Professor Ali Khawaja heavily encouraged me as well. He's like, guys, if you're aiming for a very concise sort of thing to have like a bang on impact, then try to make content that's no longer than 20 to 30 minutes. But then our podcast evolved into something more conversational. I say evolved after like 4 episodes. I'm really a maniac in that regard. But anyway, what are some of the topics that you guys have covered? I remember a couple of episode names off the top of my head. You guys post every 3 weeks, is that right?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, okay. And what are some of the topics you guys have covered?
We have covered child predators. We have covered environmental sustainability, the second wave, memes.
Of corona or something else.
COVID-19 and memes. And what else? So we really go from the mundane to something that's critical. So we fluctuate in that sense. And we have also covered the BLM.
Yeah.
And so these are basically our topic list. As you can see, you could really listen to chill stuff without putting much thought into it, like our memes episode. and you
chill
would
stuff. And then you've got child predators, and I saw how you went into that, by the way. I think that's the only episode, shamelessly admitting here, that I've had the time to sit down and watch. So yeah, I like how you can foray into these different topics and cover them all so well. So kudos to you.
Oh, thank you.
So coming to the going back to what was the global? You talked about the Global Undergraduate Research Awards. What was it about? exactly?
UGRA. Yeah, I read about the UGRA, but I wasn't able to actually form a team and take part. What did you guys do for the UGRA?
Wait, I think you're confusing it with something else.
No, not UGRA. What I'm saying, the Global Undergraduate Research Awards.
Yeah, so this particular award is actually on an individual basis, so it's not really a team application, and you have to send in your research papers.
Yeah.
Usually from
We're on the
year
same
3 and
page.
4, and they basically give away awards for each category. And I was awarded in political science and international relations in 2018 and 19.
Nice. And what did you get your award for?
As in the topic?
Yeah.
Oh, so the first time I received it, it was regarding systemic inequality, and I was exploring the realities of the caste system in India and how difficult it is for a lower caste woman to actually hold an office of power. And the second year, which was my final thesis, it was titled How to Save a Democracy, because of everything that's going on. And I had just written about the resilience that's built into the Indian Constitution that would ensure that democracy would always win, no matter how difficult it gets for us. And it was just a constitutional breakdown in that sense.
Nice.
Oh, that's
Yeah. Nice. That was the first time you received it? You got it multiple times?
2018 and 2019.
Oh, okay. Wow. Man, writing research papers is like a whole different avenue in a way, because especially when you're thinking of writing about a topic like this, sorry, when you're like, talk us through the experience of writing research papers, because I think it's like a very important sort of aspect in the sense because of how much people undermine the ability to write one.
Oh my God, who are these people who undermine it? They need to come speak to me. Yeah, they better come speak to me.
I've written too, I know.
So it is probably one of the most difficult academic tasks, which is exactly why everybody needs to write, irrespective of your stream or your major. Everyone needs to write a research paper. So it's an unavoidable tool of communication. It's the only way you can let people know that you're thinking inside an institution, because everybody doesn't have the chance to just leap in classrooms and keep answering the questions and then proving how smart you are. That just doesn't work. So the one place where you can collate all of your knowledge that you have gathered across the semester and put in one place, that has to be a research paper. So it really does, it needs more respect than it is given right now. And the second thing is, regarding the process, I just cry. I don't know what you mean by me. It's a horrible process, because you have to read through so many books and so many research papers. And if you have, like I had, accomplished professors who can see through bullshit in the first, my apologies, I excuse my French, but that's exactly how they would call it. And you waste your time.
This much is fully acceptable. I love the passion. Keep it going. Jai Hind.
Yeah, they wouldn't hesitate before just flushing down your paper. So you need to be careful when you present, and it isn't just copy pasting stuff you've seen and then just changing a few the's and a's here and there and then tricking people into thinking stuff. A well-written research paper is an argument. It is.
People will see through that. To all of you young aspiring individuals starting university, people will see through
your crap.
And they will make you feel bad about it. You will know for a fact that you have messed up. I can tell you this with absolute confidence.
Yeah, because it's
like the plagiarism. They're just trying to maintain the plagiarism as well. God,
of course, don't copy paste. What the hell? And some people don't even make an effort to go beyond Wikipedia.
Yeah.
You
True.
think that's an appropriate source? Like, I can change stuff there.
Hmm.
So you can change stuff there. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's an open source. Don't think you can write a research paper by just tapping on Wikipedia. And it's a really tough process, because that's the thing. People think a research people. Wow, now it's my turn. RIP English. Research paper is just a summary. It's not. You need
Mhm.
to introduce your own refreshing arguments, and what you take from other people's papers and books is just supporting evidence that you think ABC is correct, because of which
Exactly.
this is the thesis, and I can prove to you that I'm correct because other people before me has written the same, and they have not been proven wrong yet. So here you go. That's literally how research paper works. So don't think that you can just
Exactly.
summarize something, whatever, like, yeah, some dead man said this and therefore this is an exciting paper. That's not going to happen. You're not going to excite anyone. You're not going to win any awards. It's going to take a lot of effort. You're going to come up with something new.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Like just sitting there trying to wait till the plagiarism checker, like just under 15%. Just under 15% is like
Just
fine for
done it.
me.
Just made it.
You just made it. But
Exactly.
I've had
Exactly.
three,
Yeah.
I've had 3% and 10% on my plagiarism checkers, so I'm safe in that sense.
Yeah, guys, with me, so I did the IB, right? And if any of you are familiar with the IB curriculum, I did it in a gem school,
Mhm.
and they make you do a lot of research for all your courses several times a year, and I still can't sleep some nights because I think something is due when it was actually due years ago. Um,
Oh my God.
uh,
You've been
Wow,
traumatized for life.
it's dramatic.
bro.
To say the least. And well, the creme de la creme, the absolute crowning jewel of our research work in the IB, is meant to be this thing called the extended essay. Now, the extended essay, you can pick any topic for it in your 6 courses from your 6 courses that you take in the IB, and you get assigned a supervisor. It's like a micro PhD,
Mhm.
almost, like 4,000 words, and I remember getting so much stick for slacking on that sometimes and for messing up little things here and there. My parents got involved at one point and it was hellish. I remember being in class once and the overall superseding supervisor of the entire extended essay program within our school, Miss Bartlett, bless her, I think she's left the school now. She was a Texan, very good lady. And she comes into my physics class at the time, being taught, by the way, by my supervisor, by my extended essay supervisor. And she looks at him, she's like, "Can I borrow Ali for a second, please?" You guys remember that part in the first Harry Potter book, I think, where the coach, I think, gets Harry out of the Quidditch class and then goes
Yeah,
to another class and goes, "May I borrow wood, please?" And Harry's like, "Is she gonna beat me with wood or something?" Yo,
yeah,
it
yeah.
it was same vibe, same energy exactly. So I get called up and she's like, Ali, so just pull your laptop out, please, to what your extended essay, and I won't keep you here long. So she pulls it out. She's like, so look here, I've highlighted this. It was one sentence, Pooja, Ali Hamid, one sentence. She's like, this is showing up in the plagiarism checker. Please fix it. Pooja, one sentence. One sentence. And she's like, I'm not going to risk sending back one plagiarized sentence to the IB because they could veto
Me
the
too.
entire.
This
I'm
this
thinking I'm
this
mixing
this
up
episode
cars.
is this episode is literally going to be titled "RIP English."
Exactly. I'm mixing
Do
up
it. Do it.
cars with several, I want to say V2 because I record several versions of tracks and podcasts in the editing process. So that's why V2 is coming up so much. And then I also play Call of Duty, in which you have this thing called the VTOL. It's an autonomous sort of drone that flies near and kills people. So yeah, they could have vetoed the entire school and we could have all gotten in trouble for plagiarism. It has happened before, so I'm not exaggerating.
Mhm.
Wow.
So yeah, I was made to correct that one sentence. Fast forward a year, I decided to publish my extended essay in a peer-reviewed journal, and my supervising professor at the time was someone who my grandfather had taught when he was younger. My grandfather used to be a professor of physics himself, so my supervising professor in a university in India, in Jamia Millia Islamia, shout out to Dr. Javed Ali, really helped me a lot. He calls me into his room and he says, hey, Ali, I really need to ask you something about your research. Please come in, close the door. And then he was like, can you teach me what techniques you use for like citation and stuff? And I was like, sorry? Now this guy's been publishing for years in several journals that were 100 times bigger than I published in. I was like, why? He's like, I ran your paper through a plagiarism checker, and the plagiarism rating of your entire paper is less than 1%. What's going on? So then I told him the entire story, and that should tell you just about. I've gotten a lot of stick when it comes to writing research papers correctly in my childhood. So if I had to come to conclude at one resounding point, please take your research seriously. If you're entering university, you're going to get stick for it. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So from an initiative like Power Up UAE to being selected for the E7 Banat, to, as you said, winning accolades in the Undergraduate Research Awards. Tell us a little bit about your work with, I believe, Unilever, right? In diversity and inclusion. What's that been like for you?
It's been good, as in it was something new. I myself did not know that there was a position called diversity and inclusion lead in
Me neither.
corporate.
Me neither.
Wow.
I got to know something like that existed when I was interviewed for it. And I actually joined Unilever as an intern back in 2018, right after university. So once I was done with my internship track, then I stepped into my role as the diversity and inclusion and learning coordinator for North Africa and Middle East. And it has been a very, it has been a great learning experience because it's tough. Change is not easy to make, and you need to learn a lot before you can do something right. And yet, like, there is no end to this learning, right? Because you might have the best of intentions and all of the passion and energy in the world, but to actually make a difference, you need to always stay humble and work hard, because there's a lot more that you don't know as opposed to what you know. And that's the attitude you need to know you need to have as a DNI lead, because you just don't have all possible social identity and experience within you. And you would be doing service to so many different people, and they all come from different backgrounds and they all have different social identity. So you need to be sensitive to all of that in order to develop an inclusive strategy that benefits everyone equally, or equitably. Equally is, I think, utopian, but equitably is fair.
Yeah, I totally get the concept. I would say the overarching theme with a lot of work that you do has this deep sense of righteousness and, to an extent, philanthropy, be it all the initiatives that you've discussed today. And of course, I'm sure you're just barely getting started, and you've got a lot more that you intend to do in the future, inshallah. So I would say, as maybe a sort of summative point or cohesive point, all your experience with, and all your difficulties in the realm of philanthropy, in the realm of entrepreneurship, and then also your work with Unilever, what has it taught you? What have you learned that you would say has made you a better person? What would you like to tell the audience about what you've done?
Resilience. Keep calm and move on.
Yeah.
Because all these things did not happen in a day. Nothing great is ever built in a day. I'm not saying I've reached greatness yet, but then the things that I do cherish and hold close to my heart really took a lot of tough days to reach that point. So if you give up, then you would never be able to reach that day where you finally feel fulfilled. And you need to toughen up. And honestly, like, you won't have a great story to tell if you get things the easy way.
Damn true.
Absolutely. Wow.
And it's very sad because I think of all the different things that I want to do, and I think of all the times that I've put them off because, I saw obstacles in front of me and I decided that those obstacles were too great, or that I had other priorities, or that, it couldn't be done. And it's nice to see that after acquainting with so many people these years at AUS that I'm so thankful for, and of course, getting to know you and getting to interview you, it's really clear to me that at the end of the day, it's about how much you're willing to put into it, and that's just it. What you put in, you get out. And as cliched as that sounds,
No,
push comes to shove. Yeah,
yeah. And I don't want anybody who's listening to this to get discouraged and think we
yeah.
are just a different breed. It's not. We're 90% our own tears.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
so,
So true. So
so it is really tough. But then if there's something that you really want to see come into fruition, you just have to work towards it, no matter how hard it gets. Surround yourself with people who believe in you the way you believe in your idea. And trust me, there are many other people who've actually found success. And I know it because I Googled it. Because sometimes I see people who have achieved so many great things when they're just in their early 20s. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm nearing the 30s and I have not achieved anything great. And I suck and I should probably give up. And then I just Google think, oh, let's see who else has, found late success. And there are plenty of people. So you don't have to be a prodigy. Just be yourself. And one day you would also get there.
several. I totally agree with that, and I really love particularly what you said about, oh, I wanted to know how to do a certain something. I couldn't figure it out, so I said, frick it, and I Googled it. Yeah,
That confidence.
it's amazing because my mother keeps telling me that you guys are fortunate for one reason, and that one reason is the sheer availability of resources at your disposal.
100%.
It is literally up to you to decide what you do with what you have, right? Do what you can with what you have. Let not your foes have the last laugh. That's a little something that I randomly freestyles while lying in bed one day, and I don't know why I have these moments sometimes. And they occur, bathroom, shower, bed, all these places.
That's worthy of being a tagline.
Yeah. It is. I'm humbled, incredible. Guys, you can check out my poetic works soon. Don't worry, on my main. But yeah, for now, I love it. I love the message of persistence that you've been able to put out. Before I let you go, before we close off, there's something that I want to ask you personally. Look, it's no secret that you give off a vibe of, intense passion and dedication and initiative towards what you do. Okay. And I'm not saying that in a bad way at all. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but there is a very specific question that I wanted to ask. In all your years, not just being obviously a student here in the UAE, but also being a woman, not being from the local background over here, and having so many of these differences that a lot of us have to grow up with in this particular community. What's that been like for you? Has there ever been a time where you felt so clearly discriminated because of your identity? What have you done about it? What do you suggest that the audience do about it? What do you have to say on that matter?
They'll be inspired by what maybe they'll be able to step up to, and hearing you, they'll be able to step up and gain some insight into what they can do as well. So that's very important.
Of course. So I don't want to sound preachy, yeah? As in, like, it's just treat this as if you're listening to just another friend and their life experience. So
there was a reason I spent so much time easing in and talking about Power Rangers, guys, because at the end of the day, we're ordinary people. And the whole reason I started, and Ali Hamid started this podcast, is to show you guys that us ordinary people have something to offer. And you guys have something to offer, which we're going to let you offer soon. I don't want to tease a bit too much. I might be post-teasing anyway. But yes, Pooja, please continue.
I would say for me, my inspiration for everything I do was definitely my upbringing and the social and economic background that I belong to.
Yeah.
I know that I've written a paper about lower caste women and their struggles to become politicians or any office bearers in the Indian government is because I belong from a lower caste. And the reason I started up Power Up and I was so passionate about students who cannot access equal opportunities is because I also, at that point of time, I was always a middle income household kid, but then in my early days, it was definitely low income bracket. And I always felt discriminated against for some horrible reason that I could not process as a child, that I don't understand how my friends probably with half the passion to sit in a classroom could do it so easily, whereas I had to struggle to be in that place. So for me, I would say that it dawned on me quite early that the system is in a way rigged against people who somehow, by the lack of their birth, to be honest, we don't choose to be born in the families that we are in or choose to belong in the social identity that we get, but that doesn't mean that we are not proud, or we're not we
Completely agree.
don't fully accept and acknowledge who we are. It is actually the world that refuses to see us and
Yeah.
tout us as invisible. And that is what I try to fight every day, that it doesn't matter what your social background or economic background is. I believe that everybody needs to equitably access opportunities that allow them to learn, dream, and grow and become the person that they want to be. It shouldn't be decided by something as simple as where you were born and who your parents are.
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
And with that, ladies and gents, thank you so incredibly much for tuning in. Do you know what? For the first time in the 6-7 interviews that we've conducted so far, I did not realize where the hour went. I just did not realize at all, because it was so natural and it was so wonderful. So thank you so much, Pooja, for coming on and sharing your wonderful initiatives and your wonderful experiences, and indeed the truly motivating and almost heroic, I would say, lessons.
Oh my
with us.
God.
At the end of the day, you, I, and Ali Hamid are just Marvel and Power Rangers fanboys and fangirls, and that's what we want you guys to take away from this. Never mind anything else that we've mentioned. This has been your host, Ali Adnan Rada, with my wonderful co-host,
Ali Hamid Zaidi, signing off.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.